So hello everyone, and in this video we are going to make this vertical accordion. When you click, it basically switches from this container to the another one. It kind of gives like a book type of feeling. And the best part is you could add anything in here. It doesn't have to be this text, but I kept just a text, and you could add any images, widget, or anything that you want. It is fully responsive, and if you check in the mobile view, it looks like this. You could check in your mobile, it is fully responsive. And even for tablet it looks similar. I'm not using inspect tool for responsive for now because I think Google Chrome's new update kind of messed it up. Another thing is this is actually a part of my this template, which is animated landing page number 2. It is for $5. It comes with like lots of different effects. So if I do this, you could see it comes with a preloader. All of these sections that are made actually has like free tutorials that you could make from scratch, but if you don't want to make from scratch, consider buying the template. It saves you time. And you could see this, all the effects that I'm showing right now have videos done on it, how to make from scratch. But again, a $5 template if you don't want to make from scratch, and I have it ready. Another thing I totally forgot is that I have actually created this vertical accordion last time when I created a video on it. You could see it also does the same stuff where it gets bigger and smaller. This also can be made full screen by just using full width, and yeah, you could also use this if you want. It's totally okay, but just wanted to let you guys know that I've already created a video like this before. So first thing first, we will create a container which would be 100 viv height and make it full width like 100%, full width 100%. Then inside of this we need 4 containers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, let's just make one first and then just duplicate it. And this one needs to be full heights, right? So we'll do 100 VH because we want it full height. Let's give this a name. I'll call it like wrapper, and I'll call this as column so that we know which one we are working on. The column, I'm going to give it a color. So I'm just going to give it like this weird color. And then you can see there's some white spots around here. That is because in our wrapper we need to make sure there's no padding. In our column we will add a text like this, which would be called as research. Let's make it white in color like this. And in the column we will make sure that it is going from left to right, so it takes like this. And in our column we will create another container. So you can see that I am simply just using a text and a container, but it is 100% possible to add like one container in here and then one container like this, maybe to have like more options. But using less containers basically can speed your website, which is why I like to do it in a better way. But again, it is 100% possible with slight code adjustment. Let's give this container a color. So you could give it like any other color that you want and all. I'm simply just going to make it black and then give it like slightly less opacity so that it looks something like this. Okay, again, play around with the values until it looks better and don't just be like this. Again, the same thing, that there is some slight of spacing. So in the column we will go into advanced and do 0. This I'll call it as inner, so like inner container. And instead of this we can simply just add some text. You could add anything. I'm just adding text just for the visual purposes, and I'm just going to place it in center. This all the stuff that you're doing around here, it's based on your choice what you want to add. Now you could see that there is actually some spacing around here. You could see that is because in a column we have given gap. So in between each element inside of this container there would be 20 pixels gap. So let's just do 0 so there's no gap. Then I'm going to make sure this column is 70%. So like this, so this is 70%. And the reason why we do this is by default I want the first one to be opened and then the last 3 ones just not be opened. So I'm just going to keep this 70 and then do 10, 10, 10. But before doing that, I will use grow. And again, you could see nothing's happening because we need to make sure this wrapper is going left to right, because again, we want elements to be left to right. So now in a column, if I do grow, you could see it tries to just say that, hey, there's some empty space. I'm just going to take that. And using grow also kind of allows you to force it. So like I said, it's 70%, right? If you don't use grow, if you add more elements in here, for example, if I add like 70, you could see this is not actually being 70%. But if I do grow, it will be like, hey, I am 70%, I am going to force myself to be 70% like this. So I'm going to do that, and you could see there's some space around here. So let's go to our wrapper and remove the gap, and let's just delete the column like this. Now before doing all that, I will add CSS class so that we don't have to add it like manually in each one of them. So I'm going to use this CSS class DM column title. And again, when you go to my website, the CSS classes would be arranged in a nicer way so that you don't have to go and copy from like this code like the way I'm doing. So just go down in the link and you'll find the website where I would have all the CSS classes placed nicely. So this one would be called DM column title. Now nothing's going to happen because we need to go down. Again, you could also add the HTML widget inside of this, but I think it takes some space, so which is why I just like to do it in a different container. I'll call it as, just call it as column code. Make sure it's full width so that it uses one less div. If you don't know what div is, you could think of it as when you use box, there's one container and there's one extra container in here added by Elementor. So if you use full width, you just remove that extra div, especially for something that we are not going to use much. We can add HTML in here, and then here we will add all our code. But before doing that, in the column code, I'll make everything 0 so that it takes like no space. So you could see that if I add a color in here, let's say red, and if I do hide this, you could see it is taking no space, but it is actually available there and the code would still work. You could also place it at the end of this stuff, totally okay. But I just like to keep this like this for this type of design. Now we have given this DM column title. So I'm just going to copy this just to show you what this would do. You can simply just copy the whole code, but just for the sake of this video, I'm doing this. So I've set it to DM column title, white space, no wrap, writing mode, left to right. If you change this to RL, it is turning into different direction. Okay, so left to right for here, and the width is set to 15%. So because I'm not using a container, I'm simply just making it use this width. Okay, I'm just making this whole element be 15% and kind of making it look like it's a container. Now we will select this heading, go into style, set it in the center and do some sizing. Okay, looks good to me. You can play around with it more to make it look better. Now in the code, you could see that I've made it 15% width. So in our inner container, you could also make it be 85 so that it's 1585. Now one more thing is, I totally forgot, for the inner container we actually need to give position absolute, because if you don't give that, then it will not work nicely. So let's give it position absolute and say stay on the right side, and then for the height we will go into this pen icon and type 100%. There's no 100%. When you use position absolute, if you type 100%, it basically takes the size of the parent container. Now I'm going to just duplicate this. You could see it is showing like this, and I'm going to make this column be 10 like this. Okay, and because it is set to grow, it is actually being weird, but that is because this is 70, this is 10, so it's 70, 80, 90 and then 100. And don't worry if it looks weird, we will work on making it look better, because when we add the code it would work nicely. I'm just going to make it have like different colors. So I am using this weird colors right now. We should have done one more thing before we did that. So let's just first go in here and add all the CSS classes. We should have done this before, but right now let's just do it manually. So for each column, we will add DM column tab. Okay. And remember, if you want to have 5 of this, you will need to do some changes. I'll show you how to do that so that you can add like any number of tabs. But for now, let's work with 4 and then we will change it later. Then we will go into this collapsed like this much, copy this and give it to the headings of all the collapsed column. So these are collapsed, this is expanded, right? So let's go to this one and do space and do press once like this. Go to heading again, do space and add it. Then do it for all of them. Okay, so all 3 of them have added collapse. We didn't add anything in here because it's open, right? Then we will select DM column inner tab and obviously you would know where to add it. It's in the inner tab or inner container. Let's add it to each one of them. You should have done this before and then just duplicate it like this so that you don't have to go and manually do it like this. So let's just copy all this code, go into the HTML and paste everything. And you could see suddenly it just started to work nicely. And that is simply because by default in our inner tabs, I basically made it be display none so that it just does not show. And you can see that the first one is automatically visible because in the code I have done it manually. And if you want more safety, because sometimes the JavaScript code might not run in the editor, you could simply just go and add this active to the first one only, okay, because it is an active one. Rest of it would automatically be added when you click, so just make sure to only add to the active one. If you want, you could even go into the active and add it to the first column like this. And you could see one thing, that in the code I have set that DM column tab active should be width 70%. So right now, even though if you go in here and try to change stuff, you would see nothing's going to happen, because in the code I have made it that it automatically does 70 just for the safety purposes. So let's go into our tablet portrait and make sure that our wrapper goes top to bottom. Our column tab should be 100. Again, this all should have been done at the start, to be honest. And make sure to go into pixels and probably do 0. And make sure the column tab, and make sure to also make the column tab go down, like up to down like this. Let's go to the second one and do the same stuff. Make it go top to bottom and 100%. You can also make this be 0. Let's do for all of them. And then make sure that each column is set to center like this. Let's go in here, do center. So let's first go to the mobile view and see how this looks. For me, it is looking good, but you could again play around with it more. Just do paste style, paste style, paste style, and you got something that works like this. Let's go to the desktop view. Let's do publish. Let's check on the live page if it looks nicer. This is looking weird, right? So until we click, it does not look good. So if I do refresh, what? Okay. So when we do refresh, the first location is weird. Let's see why. So one more thing, we have to give collapsed to each title in here too, because if you go into the code, you can see that for the each column, when it is collapsed, I've given it to be width 100%. So whenever this collapsed one, you need to go and add this width by using the CSS. No need to do for the first one because it will be opened by default. And you could see each one of them looks nicer. Let's also check in the mobile view if it looks good enough. Let's hope that the inspect works nicely. Okay, so one issue, I shouldn't have made it be in the center. That was stupid of me. So one stupid thing that I did was, instead of making the column be at the center, make it be at the start for the mobile and all, like this, like this. And all of this inner one should actually have 100% because now it's like full screen, right? So let's do 100%. And one more thing is, you can see that the inner container now is full. So if we need to go and type something like 80%, or you could do like something like 80%. And right now, if we go to the code, I've set the DM column tab to have height of 100 pixels. So when it is like closing, it is actually 100 pixels. So I can simply just go into the inner advanced and say on the top 100 pixels. Okay, so if you were using some different value in here, add the same value so that it does the same stuff, and then reduce the opacity or something, or not, sorry, opacity, minimum height. And this is why I said that it would have been better to do all that stuff and then just duplicate it so that it would have been quicker. So I'm just going to do the same stuff for everything. One more thing, Into the column I will give like 20 padding. Okay, so you could see it looks better. So you can see how this looks right now. Everything just works perfectly. If I go to mobile, it also works perfectly. You could see. You could obviously play around with padding and all to make sure it's in center, because right now it is being 100 pixels. Now the thing comes, how do we add more stuff? So let's say if I wanted to have fifth one, what I need to do is I need to go into the column and simply duplicate it, and it's going to be outside our stuff. So just to have some color, we cannot see it obviously because it's outside our stuff. I can add a column and then go into the code and say that the first one or whatever the active is should be 60%. And suddenly you could see it's working because it is 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So obviously you could reduce this value, or you could also reduce the width of the active tabs, or sorry, not the active, the collapse tabs, by changing the width around here. And make sure that when you add all of this, it turns to 100, and that way it basically just works nicely. And for the tablet and all, it will automatically work without any issues because it's going up to down, right? And there's no like gap, there's no like reason for us to have some issues for that. If you want, you could also give the wrapper overflow hidden to avoid any weird glitchiness. Let's do publish, because when I click on here it's doing nothing. So just to check whether it's working or not, let's do that. Yep, the last one is also working. First, third, fourth, everything is working nicely, you could see. And let's see some effects that is happening. So the width is set to 15% for this text, and then 85 for our containers, right? So 15 plus 85 is 100. So you could obviously play around the width in here and then the width in here to make something that works for you better. Again, I already told you what this does. Then for the inner tabs, when it turns to active, it basically fades in. And the reason why I added a fade in, because if you don't add fade in, let's say if I remove the fade in effect, so I'm going to remove the fade in effect and simply just give it opacity 1 just to see what's happening. It will basically just pop up like this. And if you go down to the code, you would see that I actually have added like a delay. So it waits for 500 milliseconds. So if I remove this 0, you can exactly see why I did this. You could see the text trying to fit in the column because it goes from 85 to like lower size. You could see, which is why when I add a fade in, it basically waits for everything to load and then shows the text, and that way it doesn't create this weird glitchiness where it's tried to like stretching and fitting. So again, if you want any other effect, you could simply just change some effect in here. For example, this goes from 0 to 1. And it takes 0.5 seconds around here for the animation to happen. But if you want to do any translation, like going from left to right, maybe going from blur to non-blur, anything, you could do it in here with like basic CSS. This media max width 1024 is for tablets and mobile. If you go in here, you could see that it says tablet portrait up to like 1024, and then below like 767 is mobile. So when you just do for tablet, it automatically works for mobile too. So obviously if you want more controls, you could just copy paste this much and then type here 767, and this one would only work for mobile, this one would only work for tablet. This is for the height. So when it is closed, the height is 100 pixels, and when it is opened, the height is 500 pixels. So when this opens, it is now being 500 pixels. So if you want more or less, again, change these values and play around with it more. And if you want more, you could add this, you can just copy this and have more control for the mobile. Rest is actually just JavaScript, where whenever we click, we just remove the active class and add the active class. Nothing like very complicated stuff. Basically, we are just dynamically adding this active class and removing it whenever we click. And yeah, that's all. Again, if you want to buy the template, the link is in description, so that you don't need to make from scratch and you get like lots of cool stuff. And yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.